What security mistake are people still making? Help us prevent
You use a password
loss.
manager, right?
I actually don't.
Oh my God.
Actually don't.
That's my answer. That's my answer. Please start. I have a good litmus test personally for knowing whether this is a good use of AI or not. And that is if you put in a single high signal sentence and the output is 500 lines, you've basically decompressed your high signal into a bunch of noise, and that's just bad. You shouldn't do that.
Yes.
And what is becoming really important is making sure you're putting in the right context with all the right information.
Where do you see AI really moving the needle in banking? Because for me, I don't know what I need as a customer. I want it to work. I want it to be safe. I don't want friction. I want it to be secure. What matters when it comes to implementing AI? Hello and welcome to In the Blink of AI. I'm Georgie Healy, and today my guest oversees 9 to 10 teams building the AI platform that powers Australia's largest bank, Commonwealth Bank. I've been a customer since I was literally a little Dollar Mite back in primary school. And Blair Hudson is a chief engineer of Generative AI there. He's also a really well-loved thought leader. He's a LinkedIn top voice, but his origin story as a self-described hacker is really one that I wouldn't have normally expected. When he was growing up and his mum was a teacher, he would have just unfiltered access to all the computers, clicking every system configuration setting and starting a really incredible journey into loving technology and now absolutely being passionate about AI. He's been building products before ChatGPT, GPT-2, when there was no chat that existed. He has a litmus test for bad AI use, and he's got a lot of great hot takes in this episode. One I really loved is that software engineers need more direct accountability for what they're building and who they're building for. And I can't think of a better person to be responsible for building guardrails at a bank with millions of customers, myself included. Let's dive in.
You're listening to a Day1.fm show.
Founders scale faster on Deal. Set up payroll for any country in minutes, hire anyone, anywhere, get visas handled fast, and get back to building. Visit deal.com/day1. That's DEEL.com/day1.
Long term, since I was 5, being a Commonwealth Bank customer as a Dollar Mite, thrilled to be talking about something that was not around when I was a Dollar Mite, which is AI. But let's start us off with your AI hack of the week.
Yeah. I think this is going to go pretty deep, but I found a plugin for OpenCode, which is one of the open source AI coding agents, your sort of Codex Claude Code sort of things. The plugin's called Magic Context. I don't know if you ever doing something with AI and you get too deep into the conversation and it starts losing its marbles over just how much is going on there.
Too much.
It starts repeating things that aren't right. It doesn't know what to focus on. So what this Magic Context is this plugin for OpenCode where it'll automatically get rid of the irrelevant stuff. And that's really important for 2 reasons. One is with less context, the whole thing just works faster because it has to process less tokens.
Yeah.
It means it also costs less. So you're going to burn your credits and your allowance so much slower because it's actively managing that context. And so, yeah.
Magic Context.
Yeah. It's changed the way that I've started using coding assistants. I no longer clear the session anymore. I've had my project. I just keep going. And it continuously just manages it.
Do you know what I've been doing? I've been starting new chats every time, but then I've got all these chats and I'm like, which one? And it is hard to find which chat after you've got so many open, but I was I don't want to spend too much. I don't want to run out of credit. Yeah, incredible. I love that. We've never had that hack before. Didn't know it existed.
It's pretty new.
You're the chief engineer for Gen AI at Australia's largest bank. We do have international listeners. So Commonwealth Bank is our largest one, and very signature yellow and black branding. What do you do each day?
It's a good question. it's important to understand what the role of a chief engineer is. And so there's many chief engineers in the bank. It's sort of one of the higher levels of the individual contributor track for engineers. And I guess my responsibility is broadly across all of the teams that are in our Gen AI platform area at the moment. There's about 9 or 10 teams, depending on the quarter and how we mix things around. And so I have sort of pretty broad technical responsibility for all of the kind of core AI platforms that we offer to all of our internal teams, developing and building AI solutions on top of. So that's everything from how people get access to large language models to build, their solutions on, through to like the measurement and monitoring platforms that we can get all of the telemetry and insights and then start to run evaluations and things on top of that. The way that we run our guardrails and, all of those models there are designed to like protect and make sure the use cases are working as they're meant to be. Yeah, it changes fast.
You're busy. And with multiple engineering leads or equivalent, do you guys work together? Do you collaborate? Or do you have quite distinct silos, or is it a mixture of the two?
So I think like a chief engineer is assigned to a specific domain, area of expertise and speciality. But like one of the most important aspects of the role is to work out how to integrate that area with the other areas of the bank. So I actually spend loads of my time with different parts of the business who are like the major consumers of our things. Like right now I'm actually working with our business banking team on a 2-week accelerator event where our core like platform team works in partnership with the data scientists and engineers in business banking on their problems. Right?
That's cool. I briefly was at Commonwealth Bank as an employee, and just was the sheer size of the bank and the different units and the different responsibilities and how they show up for customers, I found really incredible and awe-inspiring. Is it a little bit overwhelming, all those different units, or do you do sprints like that and that's how you get across?
I think it could be overwhelming if you let it overwhelm you, right? Like it is such an incredible organization. Like there's just so many people, but like the thing, I joined Commonwealth just over 18 months ago, and I think one of the things that surprised me the most was how integrated it actually feels across all of the organizations. I've done a lot of consulting work in the past. I've worked in other organizations. The level of integration across all of those different teams was a big surprise. And obviously in a super positive way. It wasn't what I was expecting. Yeah.
I tend to agree too. You would assume that there would be a lot of, well, who's owning that and who's owning that? But actually on the call, it's like, well, we can't have this discussion without looping in this team and this team. And I found that also very safe pair of hands. Good to know. When I worked there, it was pre-AI being at scale and of huge importance. I think it was still at the stage where it was an investment thesis, much like Web3 was an investment thesis and things like that. Now it's clearly changing people's lives and is the future of tech. You said in my research that something that I used to strive for, tech qualifications, might not be as critical or as important to you as just staying on top of technology. Talk me through that. Why is that?
I think it really depends on how you like to learn. And there's lots of different ways to learn, and a lot of people who, are focused on building skills at different points in time. But for me, I find the way that I learn best is just to do a project. And I just pick up a new piece of technology and a suitable problem, and I just get to work. And I think the emergence of all the modern tooling around AI coding assistants and models, it's actually a very good time to just dive in head first. And what the reason why I find that works really well for me is it helps me to compound the knowledge that I've got across different areas very quickly. You almost try and corner what is the one new thing that I need to learn about this, where I can use everything that I understood before that to go and get on top of it. I was working on a small project the other day, and there's a cool new web framework that came out. And I already know a good amount of stuff about others, but I thought I would give it a go. And, the knowledge that I've got in the other areas just helped me, reinforce I knew my learning was going in the right direction. And, now I've done a cool project on a new framework, and, that's just can sit in the toolkit.
I love that. A lot of our listeners are like me, keep hearing about these new tools, this AI product you have to use, and the post-it notes where I'm writing down all these things that I have to learn, have to get to, gets very overwhelming. and which one's actually worth my time and which one will actually move the needle. Any advice? Any tips?
Honestly, I'm fickle.
Yeah.
I chop and change tools all the time.
So do I.
And
Is that
it's very
bad?
experimental.
Genuinely, sometimes I think if I just spent this entire time on Claude and not switched from ChatGPT to Perplexity to Claude to Gemini, like I've been all over the place, and I'm like, would I be an elite Claude user by now if I wasn't so fickle? Or is it kind of good to keep your brain moving?
I think the velocity of new features being developed and the surface area that is covered across these products keeps moving so quickly, and so to me it makes sense to try out different tools, right? And maybe have a your favorite, and you maybe come back to that. But I think it's fair to spend the time on exploring other capabilities, because you'll find things like magic context where all of a sudden you've dropped your token consumption in half, and you couldn't have done that before. And I bet you next week the other tool will release that feature, right?
100%. I think it's worth playing around, because every now and then you do go, this genuinely is a game changer, but how would you know if you're not constantly trying new things? Yeah. Whisperflow for me is that, the voice AI feature I'd used before. Within the LLMs, you can, record. There's something about Whisperflow and being able to be used on any place there's a cursor I've really appreciated. And I'd heard about it so many times and finally started using it.
I got something new on my to-do list to give a go. I think we have access to a large assortment of technologies, our engineers and our data scientists, they have freedom to explore a little bit. We have ones that we do support internally as well. We have our preferred tools.
Of course.
And I'm sure you remember back to your corporate days, trying to configure something to work inside the org is always a little bit harder than outside. And so, there's the basic set where we really understand how to get them set up and working in there, and they're supported. There's always going to be a bit of time for experimentation as well around the outside.
I would love to talk about that.
Founders scale faster on Deal. Set up payroll for any country in minutes, hire anyone anywhere, and get visas handled fast so you stay focused on scaling. Deal takes care of onboarding, HR, IT, EOR, benefits, and compliance, so your team can grow without borders. It's why more than 40,000 fast-growing companies trust Deal to move fast. Visit deal.com/day1. That's DEEL.com/day1.
From where I'm sitting, it doesn't make sense to have everyone using different tools and they don't talk to each other, and it slows you down and you can't actually show up for customers at speed in a meaningful way. Where do you think it's great to have consistency, and where do you think let's not make people feel too straitjacketed by certain tools?
I don't know that I have a direct answer for that question, but what came into my mind is the standards that start to emerge from this. Ultimately, if there's a few different competing tools and the user demand finds something that is generally useful, a standard will emerge. And we've seen this happen loads of times with OpenAI and Anthropic's products. The chat completions API, the original way you would interact with a large language model from OpenAI, became the standard. That's since been replaced with a new format called Responses API, and then Anthropic had their own, and they were sort of competing for a little bit. And then OpenAI has gone and released the Responses API as a standard, and you can go and read about that. Probably a more recent one that you would have seen is the idea of agent skills.
Yes.
And that's another good example of a standard that's come out. It doesn't really matter which tool you're using. They're all adopting agent skills, so you can kind of work across them all. And so the time you spend investing on how to get your skills right over here, it's not gone to waste. You can probably move that to, the next tool as it comes up and keep building on top of it.
That's beautifully said. I do remember when myself and some friends in the industry decided to switch LLM platforms, and very quickly there were guides teaching you how to very easily, quickly do that. We were all worried all our context is buried in one platform, never to be used again. It's not actually that sticky.
Probably get AI to help you move tool.
Yeah.
It's probably a skill to move between tools.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. You've consistently shared your work, which I've loved. You've got quite considerable thought leadership online, LinkedIn, blogs. I love a personal brand, surprise, but it's public. Why is that important to you? Why are you sharing? And what kind of feedback do you get when you share about the technology you're using and the insights you're having?
Yeah. I don't tell a lot of people this, but now I realize we're sitting on a podcast. So like, maybe I'll just share it anyway, you know, like it's like, you know, I've actually found due to the scale of Combank and how, like, you know, there's thousands of engineers and data scientists you can learn from. And there's so much stuff going on internally. And I found that, you know, sharing the right thing publicly is actually a really good way to reach people inside.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of people are paying attention to LinkedIn. And so I think as much as it's sort of maybe like, you know, helping my personal brand externally and maybe led to this podcast, I don't know. But you know, it is a good way of reaching people internally. And there's definitely been a few times I've posted something on LinkedIn. I've had people reach out to me on Teams internally and ask me like, hey, what's this thing you're talking about? You know, how do I get access to that? I share triple the amount internally than what you see in public.
Interesting.
There's no, you know.
Oh, now I'm sad. You're gatekeeping, and we need to unlock that too now.
Maybe some stuff should stay
There's some
internal,
secret source
you know,
that stays inside. We were talking before recording, you know, I bumped into another colleague of yours, peer of yours, who's also online. And it's really nice to be able to be like, I'm meeting this person. They're a leader in their field. Do you know them? And you may have never even met in person. And it kind of connects us together. And I get asked all the time how to take my tech literacy to the next level. By you guys being online and showing up, I can point people in the right direction without needing to have all the answers myself, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like, you know, I think it's important to like help people stay up to date with, you know, what you like literally every morning I wake up, I check 3 or 4 different news sources. I try to stay on top of it. This has actually come up at work a lot of times. You know, the questions come up like, how do we like systemize the capability of staying on top of things? And you know, to me, I think that's just part of my job, right? You know, if you want to be a leader in your field, you need to stay on top of things. And so, you know, the most interesting things that I find, you know, I think would benefit others. Like I try and share them as much as we have. We actually have a super active, you know, internal Teams channel with, you know, those sort of 100 or so people in my direct area. And we just, you know, between the memes and all the latest tech news and the actually important, you know, sort of administrative updates and project updates and so on, you know, there's always a lot of fun stuff going on in there. But
I admit it's the one thing I really miss about working in a corporate is that the ability to learn from other people without having to like by myself be like, what's happening?
It helps you just cover your blind spots too.
Yes.
Right? You know, like this morning we saw, you know, somebody shared the like pull request that, you know, Anthropic recently acquired Bun, which is
Did not know this.
a development tool for writing JavaScript. And they've been using AI to rewrite it from one language to another. It's like a pretty like epic scale rewrite, like, you know, one of the first sort of public level things on this. And, you know, that was shared pretty early this morning in our chat, and we were talking about that. It's, you know.
And brilliant for an organization too, to have a team of people that can kind of, because these headlines, for a lot of us that are not as technical as you, is this important? Is this scary? Is this worth worrying about? Is this worth adopting? And to have a pool of technical people kind of hash that out amongst yourselves and have access to that, I can imagine a corporate would enjoy that.
It's just nice to be able to discuss all these things with people that are, you know, most often know more about it than I do, right? Yeah, you can't know everything about everything.
You can't know everything about everything. This was one of my favorite things when I did a bit of research about you. In high school, you and your friends were known as hackers. For me, that's an elite, cool term that means that you're on the frontier of tech and you fully understand systems at a next level. But I guess for some people, a terrifying term, don't like it. Where did the term come from? Any myth you want to dispel in the process?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't want to get in trouble or anything. It's something that I did a long time ago. So, like, I actually wrote that on my LinkedIn bio, and I wrote it some time ago, and I've just preserved it there. I actually put a little note at the top of my LinkedIn bio saying, like, I wrote this before ChatGPT. I just think it's, like, kind of cool to, like, freeze that. That was genuinely me. There was no AI supporting, writing that. That was
It's beautifully written, by the way.
My words. And so I'm gonna just keep it there, as much as I may live to regret it. But I think it, like the term hack or hackers or whatever, like can be quite polarizing for that reason. But like to me, it means getting the most out of technology, right? And I think depending on what you're doing and the role you're playing and your perspective in the scenario, like maybe you're the good guys or maybe you're the bad guys, and different people will have a different position. When someone wants to use technology to achieve an outcome, like that to me is like, when you're just trying to work out how to plug it together, like that is what that is.
I completely agree with you. And maybe it needs a rebrand, maybe it doesn't. But for me, I feel like the stigma comes from going into places that you shouldn't. But I would love to consider myself a hacker of systems and things and understanding how they work. But going from that to Australia's largest bank, not necessarily the hero journey that I expect. What attracted you to CDA? And do you still feel like you get to exercise those skills?
Yeah, maybe it's important to rewind my career a little bit to answer this question. When I was in school, I just loved doing everything I could with technology, and a lot of that came from my mum was actually a primary school teacher, and I went to the same school that she taught at, and so I just had unfettered access to computers after school, like all the time, like for hours, like 2 to 3 hours every afternoon. Oh, maybe not that. I remember it was 2 to 3 hours. It was probably
as a kid that feels long.
Like an hour. I don't think we were there till 6 o'clock, but being able to sit in front of these computers and just click around everywhere. Every single system's configuration setting was clicked through. And so, I always just had this very deep desire to get an intuition level understanding of what's going on. And I think that sort of just followed me all the way through. And, I got to the end of my university studies. I studied a software degree, but it was sort of like a prototype data science degree. There was a bunch of stats and discrete mathematics and, data, courses mixed in there. I think today it would just be labeled a data science. We did an AI course as well in Prolog.
What?
Which is, not, it's surprisingly getting a resurgence now because of Generative.
Yeah.
But yeah, very different.
You're this hasn't been proven yet, guys. Don't take it too seriously.
And I got to the end of that degree, and some of my friends were going into insurers and banks into low-level roles, and they were telling me about their experience, which was then mostly just picking up some weird bug and, toiling over it with your senior for weeks at a time. And I just didn't I didn't find that appealing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do more, and I sort of stumbled into the world of consulting and using that sort of combined software and data knowledge to go and do early stage advanced analytics work and what eventually became data science and machine learning. Really just working out how to take data and this technology and algorithms and use that to help a business with their strategy and to help them achieve their goals and meet their customer needs and all these things. And I eventually landed at a startup called Fathom AI. I think
quite
really
famous.
Innovative in its time. And I think the reason I sort of left corporate to go there was because they were building a product around data science. And, there was an immediate need to have a team of people who could come in and take the models they were building and turn them into products, and, turn them into APIs and a web app you can click on and use that as a way to get them in front of customers. They were very locked in before that into the notebooks and the data science lab. And, that's not the customer experience, right? And so when I joined the company, my goal was less about defining the models and the subject matter and more about just taking those and building a team and using the skills we had to get those into production and turn them into a SaaS product. And what I didn't expect was that I would actually fall in love with the subject matter itself. We were Fathom was looking at the global job market, and we were taking job ads, tens of millions of job ads every month, and using the earliest stage of large language models back when Google released BERT. To, back then we were thinking of it as automated feature engineering, right? We would put the text from the job ads, the job titles into these models, and we get numbers out as a result, an embedding vector. And then we'd use that to work out what the job was. right? And so like more sort of traditional machine learning, but like with this new breed of natural language processing coming in, and we were building products on that, from sort of, I joined in 2020, but the team was already on top of it before I was there. And I was super lucky to be there as OpenAI released GPT-2, and I just remember downloading it to my laptop.
You had GPT-2.
GPT-2 was like just a model that
it wasn't even chat, was it?
No, it wasn't. Yeah, it was like before chat. It was just completions. Like you would just write something, and then the AI would just continue.
Oh my goodness!
And to make it work, you would have to say the pattern of things like 5 times in a row, and you would just hope that like the 5th time it would say it in the same
You're
pattern.
joking.
And we were like building products on that when it came out. And then, I think ChatGPT came out and this like sort of chat model where you didn't have to do that anymore. And then it just exploded. And, we were right there and like started building on it straight away. And it was just, I was super lucky to be, with a team of innovators.
Subscription too, like.
it was like, it was very new.
That is wild. I have interviewed people that used OpenClaw before anyone knew about it or talked about it, but I don't think I've ever spoken to someone that used GPT-2 before. That's so rad.
Yeah, we had a really great team. Most people have gone there, different ways now, but like the core goal of our product was to use all of the insights that we could extract from the global job market and use that to help companies work out how to upskill their staff, like knowing how technology is impacting their roles. And the opportunity to join Commonwealth Bank came up and like work in the heart of like a super important company in Australia with like thousands of people who are going to be impacted by this, hopefully positively, but I wanted a piece of it. I couldn't really say no, to be honest. Like it just made so much sense. And so, yeah, that's how I got that.
It speaks to your ambition. I read 200,000 employees. No, 50,000 employees.
About right.
200,000 doesn't make any sense. But 50,000 is still a lot. I'm like, the number had so many zeros, and then millions of customers. I'm one of them. So many things to get done, so many things you could do, so many places you could be like, AFI that, AFI this. How do you choose? Is it based on pain points? Is it based on delight? Like, how do you?
I sit in the core platform team. So for us, our focus is on our users, the data scientists and software engineers in business banking, for example, we mentioned earlier. But I always remind the teams in my area, like our focus needs to be on the customers outside. Like our users are really important. Obviously, we need to give them the best experience possible so they can. But their goal is to meet like their customers' goals, and the like different areas of the business own those experiences. And so, they're responsible for prioritizing what matters the most to them. And then, it's actually like really wonderful to see how well the organization collaborates. And, I think like if we go a little bit deeper on what we're doing with business banking at the moment and this accelerator, getting to work alongside, the 8 or 9 teams that are participating in that from, like working on their customer problems, they're looking at very specific parts of, like some of the big like pain points in that are important to them, and thinking, how do we really understand like the process that is going on at the moment, and like what are the opportunities to improve it? And so every day we actually start by playing back a customer call that's been anonymized, and all the details have dropped out, obviously. It's just we've got a room full of technical people trying to build an experience, and we start with here's the real problem, right? And this is the thing we're trying to solve for. And last time we ran this, we did that like for the first half. It's a 2-week sprint. We did it for the first half, and then we didn't do those calls at the start of the day in the second half, and it just felt a bit weird. It was so grounding to have all of like even people on the deepest like core platforms of the bank like spending time to listen to some of these challenges and then work out like how to optimize their products for the teams that need to go and solve those. And so yeah,
because as a customer sometimes with other products and solutions, look, I'm going to say this, you don't have to, but Amazon, I just don't feel like when I use the Kindle app that it's getting to someone on the other end. If I have a problem, I'm like, do you care? I want you to care. And it's really heartwarming to hear that, like, at the end of the day, you're like, this is the customer pain point and we can back engineer the technology behind that. But that's kind of the focus.
It's so important. Like if you can generate 1,000 lines of code in 10 minutes, like you have to do this. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
You know? Like otherwise you just end up building nothing.
I hear over engineering can be a problem too. And maybe it's for the right reasons, but working in technology companies, like you can engineer just for the sake of engineering and like make it more rigorous and go deeper and more personalized, more customized. Do you have a perspective on over engineering? Is it a risk? How do you prevent it?
I think it is the role of every technologist to use their skills to avoid that.
Okay.
Right? They have, obviously you need to know how these, how technology works. But if you can't use that to steer your stakeholders towards something that is better or more robust or cheaper or faster or whatever the goal is you're trying to optimize for, and you end up just optimizing to build something you thought sounded cool, that's the wrong goal. Right.
It's a good side project for at home, maybe.
Good for learning, but you need to take those skills and use them to optimize towards the goal. And I think with how AI is starting to impact the software development lifecycle in particular and speed things up, it's even more important because it actually more or less doesn't matter now whether you can build it or not. Most things are getting a lot easier to build. There's so many problems that were intractable before that are now we could probably just generate, work with, use agents and our tools to, start prototyping solutions pretty quickly. The change is that now we need to start focus on, what's the user think about that? How are we actually going to get adoption? How are we going to use that to meet the underlying goal? What's the change we're trying to create? And I really think over time, the role of a software engineer in particular is going to start changing a lot more. And I think now everyone still gets to learn and you learn the tools, but I think the number one thing that software engineers need to learn is how to be more accountable for what they produce, and really understand the person they're building for. I think the days of having a long backlog of requirements and just being told what to do by a product manager, I think they're that
makes me feel more relieved because every now and then I'm just give me a simple JD today. I don't want to figure out what how to, show up today. Just give me basic requirements. But I think you're right. I think that era might be, for many jobs, evolving a little bit.
Yeah, I think otherwise you just end up building all these things that just sit on the shelf.
Yeah.
That's the point,
Where do you see AI really moving the needle in banking? Because for me, I don't know what I need as a customer. I don't know. I want it to work. I want it to be safe. I don't want friction. I want it to be secure. What matters when it comes to implementing AI?
This might sound like a completely weird thing to hear from a chief engineer working in AI, but I think I can't talk to other organizations, but the customer experience is almost always the core of the goal. Obviously we're a bank and we need to manage risk, and that has to be an important offset in there as well. But when budget is put towards when people are put towards a project and the customer experience is the goal, there's sort of a thesis that using AI and agents is the best way to maybe solve it. But what's actually happening is it's buying people time to look at what is going on and rethink it and start to reshape it. And so, I think just trying to build an agent to do a thing for agent's sake is not the right approach. But being able to take a challenge and an existing process that might be not working as well as you want it and rethink that from the outside in is where things are actually having a real impact. So I don't know that measuring number of agents to deploy is the relevant measure, right? And I know there's obviously a lot of people that are very excited about that, and a lot
everyone's obsessed with agents, Blair, and has been for probably before they were ready. So I'm glad you're saying that, because I think a lot of people were disenfranchised when it was it's the year of the agent last year, and then everyone's is anyone actually using agents in a meaningful way? And then everyone was no. And now I think they can be used, but everyone's a little bit you say that they were here a year ago.
It's so important, but I think what matters more is actually understanding the problem that you're trying to solve.
Yes.
And then reshaping the problem as much as you can.
Yes.
And if an agent is the right way to solve that problem, which it might be some of the time, do that. But also, like, just go and solve that problem anyway, because I'm sure you can use an agent to help you rewrite the software or the process or whatever as well. Like, there's it works on both ends of the the development cycle.
I heard a quote yesterday, which was culture eats strategy for breakfast. Do you kind of see it play in with like adopting AI for the point of adopting AI?
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard this statement before. I don't know what I think about it. I think it depends on how you define strategy, to be honest.
Yes.
And if you think strategy is a document,
yes,
then I agree.
Okay.
But if you think strategy is actually like sequence of steps that you're going to take to achieve a goal, culture is like important as like, the guardrails on the outside. But I think, being thoughtful about the direction you're going is very important as well.
Speaking of guardrails, how do you build at pace? How do you be the innovative bank that CBA is? How do you be the number one and top of the game while also being safe and secure and all these things that make people like banks?
Guardrails is a super overloaded term inside the bank, actually.
Really?
There's just so
is that like a swear word, the G word?
No, it's a positive thing, of course, but like it just means a lot of things to a lot of people as you use the text. Like we have our architectural guardrails, like the things you must do from a system design perspective to make sure it's secure and to use the right systems to authenticate your users, and when you're deploying it, making sure you get all your networking right and you don't get bank grade security out of nowhere, right? Like that's what these sort of things achieve. In my world in particular, like in AI systems, guardrails mean something a bit more specific. And this is the almost like the firewall that your like AI system is protected by, and so we actually have a series of models that more or less machine learning models. This is so that we can measure statistically, and they're designed to make sure that the system behaves in the right way, regardless of how the internals might behave. So, for example, we have a guardrail that is designed to detect any inbound chats that are coming from customers in a vulnerable scenario. And that's in place so that the channel team working on it can, work out what to do with that. And like right now, that is always immediately take that conversation straight to a real person. Like we just don't want the technology to try and like handle that situation. And that's what it's there for. And we've got, another like a dozen of those where we're working with the various risk owners across the team to systemize their controls into things that can wrap around the systems that are in place.
That is genuinely fascinating. So certain things you're like, do not put that in front of technology. That is too high risk. We need it to be a person. And other things like, I guess, lower risk tech can handle it. Has that evolved quickly? Like, have you put more tech in front of low risk things, or is it not that simple?
I mean, it's a bank, right? Like the risk mindset means you always start with low risk, and as you work out, really deeply understand the risks involved and account for those and design the controls and expand out once covered. I think this is the thing that this might sound boring, but like the thing that excites me about working in a bank on AI is like the risk management lens. I've worked in a lot of companies before where you can't walk down the hallway or start a Teams chat and people have this like innate understanding of like statistical, quantitative risk. They just don't know, right? And so, I think that goes a long way to help people understand how, these models like work and how they can change around, and the difference between like building a cool demo one time or like getting an impressive result out of your ChatGPT session one time versus being able to turn that into a structured, repeatable thing that you can rely on to not cause problems.
You're in a safe space. My undergrad was in chemical and metallurgical engineering, and if things go wrong, they go so badly wrong. Like it's a big natural gas site, and before we'd do anything, we'd have, and it's very old school, but the risk matrix of like severity and like likelihood, and we'd map it out and we'd do a take 5 and all of that stuff. And you only need to see like some near risk, near misses, like I'm talking about my scenarios, to be like, yeah, dude, we're doing this every day. Yeah, dude, this matters. And once everyone's on that same page, I do find it interesting.
I think if you're a graduate coming in for the first time, like that might, it might surprise you. It might even annoy you.
Yeah.
Like, they're just like, I can't get my thing to production because I keep getting told by XYZ, whoever, that, like we haven't done all those things yet. But I think, the opportunity to learn how to handle like this technology in a responsible way, in a safe way, is huge. And I think in other industries, you just don't get the same level of investment in that. It's not so like built into, how the company needs to operate. And, I think right now it makes a difference between a successful demo and like something that can actually have an impact and do real things.
Yeah. And we see the headlines when people are worried about risk of things going loose and going badly. Not worth it for me anyway. A lot of companies are experimenting with AI. The word platform might be a little bit like guardrails. For me, I think I know what an AI platform is. Can you firstly explain what an AI platform is? And then how do you enable teams without slowing them down on the AI platform?
You could imagine if you had 400 development teams, right? I don't have an exact number, but like, imagine you've got 400 development teams and you just told them to go to AWS or Microsoft or Google or whoever with their credit card and to just sign up and make an account and just build their product and send in like the invoice to finance and they'll pay it. You would get 400 very different, maybe more than 400 very different things going on. And there's just no way you could manage that, right? Like if I asked you, hey, what's happening in your technology estate? You'd go, I have no way of knowing.
I have a technology estate would be my first question.
And so like, that's what a platform is in my mind, right? Is like, how do you build the sort of foundational layers so that when you have some number of teams who all roughly have to do some tech thing, like they can come to that and they don't have to worry about how the invoice gets paid by finance. That's done. They don't have to worry about getting an account. That's done. They don't have to worry about making sure that their access to their account is secure and only they can get in, and that people from other IP addresses outside, like that's done. And so when we talk about AI platforms, it's on top of those sort of cloud foundations. I want to get access to a large language model. Like, how do I get access to that? How do I make sure that, all of my interactions with that are logged and monitored in the right way that meet all of the standards that we have in place, that the guardrails that we need to tap into are available and easy to integrate? Like that's what the platform does. And what it does is you sort of like build up all of these layers that allow the teams in the divisions to focus on what their customers need and like really understand the business and the processes that they're working on and do that layer of work without having to worry about like, oh, hey, I just set up an AWS account. What am I meant to do now?
Yes. And to your point earlier about, software engineers need to take accountability and responsibility, but it's like, but if it's like it makes some things a little bit easier so that they can focus on the things that they should be focusing on. That's fascinating. I'd never really considered what an AI platform is. And, when it comes to AI adoption, a lot of enterprise AI tools, I've got a few group chats where they're making us use this. We hate it. I feel like we're falling behind. Shadow AI will happen. What do you guys do at CBA?
I can talk to like the engineering side like more deeply, but just broadly, we have access to a lot of different tools. Like I just use ChatGPT most days actually.
Really?
And we obviously have a like CBA specific version of that in partnership with OpenAI, and that's a version that's been got all the right configurations in place to make it safe to use. It's not like people are going onto public ChatGPT and using that. But then on the engineering tooling side, it's like what we were talking about before around having different like access to these different tools that are well supported internally. Our teams can largely pick from 4 or 5, 6 different tools that they want to use, and they can get those set up and working, and back them with access to the models that they need to be productive and start using them.
I found it fascinating. It was headline news when the partnership between CBA and OpenAI happened, because I felt like it was early. Like it was early for Australian big enterprise to be partnering with one of the top AI companies. And I think it did kick up the butts of some other enterprise companies of you can do this at scale. You can have frontier models being leveraged in a safe way. I think that was quite Interesting.
It was an exciting moment internally. You know, like I wasn't part of, like, I'm not important enough to
You
be part of,
you
like, the
signed the
deal-making.
line with Sam Altman, shook his hand.
That would have been a career experience to look out for, you know. And I'm sure, like, maybe one day, you know,
Yes.
like, and we have teams going off to San Francisco and
Really?
Seattle pretty regularly, and
That's
they get to work
awesome.
with the, you know, talent from those companies, and that's really exciting, all the way down to graduate level as well. But you know, I didn't sign that deal, but I did actually share it on my LinkedIn.
Yes.
And I seem to remember I like snapshotted the press release and just put it on my LinkedIn with a quote, because I wasn't sure if I was allowed to put a spin on it of my own at that point in time. It seemed pretty important. I think it was like probably one of the most viewed LinkedIn posts I've ever had.
Wow.
Like, yeah, I don't think I broke the news. Like, it was already a press release.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was fun.
I remember being like, wow, like I assumed that these deals would happen, but being there backing employees to be able to use the best tech and leverage it in a safe way. I don't know why, but it was like it's happening faster than I expected.
I mean,
it's great.
It becomes like an expectation, I think. You know, like if I can use ChatGPT at home ever since it was released, I get used to doing, you know, being super productive in how I'd meal plan.
Yeah.
You know, why do I have to settle for second-rate internal tooling?
That was the chat messages I was getting, that's for sure, from other companies. And I get it. I get why things take time and they can be slow and they can have friction. But I think it was a great example of, but it doesn't have to be that way. Last question before the spicy rapid fire. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Prompting. This is something I remember everyone was talking about, prompting and the perfect prompts and do you want my playbook of prompts? And it was the skill in itself, prompt engineering. How do you guys, as a large organization, consider prompting? Like, is this something where you do teach each other how to do it effectively? Is there a playbook?
I have so many answers to this.
Really? Okay,
Yeah,
great. I'm comfy.
You know, I really think it depends on who you are, what role you're in, what level of like AI adoption maturity you have. You know, like we have teams. I'm not part of the teams that do this, but you know, they're like, you know, close colleagues of mine, and you know, like we have teams focused on like upskilling and training the organization on how to use these tools, and obviously building like effective prompting strategies and learning how to use that is like core to a lot of people where they're using this for the first time. I think eventually you sort of get to a level where you're like an AI intuitive, you know, you don't really consciously think about prompting anymore. Maybe your prompts even, like some of my prompts are very terse, you know, like I just...
Terse being you're cranky at the LLM?
No, I just say the minimum number of words to get my point across so it doesn't have to
I
overprocess
see.
too much stuff.
Are you polite?
I'm not impolite, I'm neutral.
You're neutral.
Yeah.
Do you believe that we have to be polite to our LLMs? It's a bit esoterical.
You know, if you're using technology at work and all your access is being monitored, you should use
come
that
on, guys,
responsibly,
just be,
you know, like,
I'm like, just be good people. Come on.
But I don't think it's because the AI is going to wake up and like, you know, attack you because you're impolite to
Or
it.
cry.
I think, you know, you should just, you know,
I feel nice when I'm being nice. I genuinely, like, I have in the past, and I know that this is insane. I'm like, if anyone saw me, this would be really embarrassing. But sometimes I'm like, great job.
I like, there was definitely a moment in time where you could pressure a model into like performing better.
Really?
You know, like, hey, this is like really
Make
important to
no
my job. I'm going to
mistakes.
lose my job if you don't do this right. Like, or like, I'll pay you $200. Like, if you do this.
Yes.
And I think the models sort of reached a point 18 months ago where that I think became less important. And what matters so much more now is the level of context that goes into what you're providing. I was having this chat with one of my colleagues yesterday afternoon. Like, I have a good litmus test personally for like knowing whether like using AI is like, this is a good use of AI or not. And that is, if you put in a single high signal sentence and the output is like 500 lines, you know, you've basically like decompressed your like high signal into a bunch of noise. And now someone has to pick that up and they're probably just going to go and throw it into AI to summarize, and then they'll get back a single sentence again.
Exactly.
And like really all you've got is a lossy, expensive, slow decompression algorithm.
Yes.
And that's just bad. Like, you shouldn't do that.
Yes.
And so I think what is becoming really important is making sure you're putting in the right context with all the right information. And this is what like software engineers are doing like already, because they've got tools to help do this. You know, if I think about the way I interact with AI most of the time versus people who are only using like ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot, I start with my entire project, right? And it can see all the code. And so like, even though I say, hey, I want to do this change, like actually all of the project is in the context. And so the output, which is actually the best way to do this change is like these 5 lines is like, you know, we've channeled down like, you know, potentially thousands of lines of input down to like, here's the thing that matters. And like, that's a good signal, right? Like you're like creating signal by doing that. I think
Speaking of context, and I know this is a different platform, it's just one I'm currently more familiar with. I'm sure it applies to all. Is this why Claude Cowork works better than the chat window? Because it's got more context, it's got more rigorous data.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot. I think like we haven't fully seen all of the tools for creating the right context for people in different roles and positions yet. But I think these like Cowork style tools are getting there. You know, like if I look at if I contrast the difference between just, you know, a chat window and the AI coding tools, like I'm working in my code repository, I've got access to all my files. When I make a change, it's really a proposal. It has to go and be reviewed like in a separate step after that, like this sort of a version control thing. And I think workspace-oriented tools that can manage documents and so on are like getting there a little bit for other, like people in other kinds of roles. And so, yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, I need to play with it more. I do feel like there is a gut check too of like, oh, it happened again. I must have like not given it enough context. It's given me the crappiest answer ever. I just
put some
wasted.
more docs in there.
Yes.
You know? All your previous show notes, you know,
I have so many projects that I need to add more files to. They're like, you've used like 2% of your potential inputs.
Just don't overfill it or you burn your quotas too quickly, you know? Like
I don't want that either.
It's really tough.
I don't want that either.
Especially if you're like, as an engineer, you're like, I'm so close to solving this problem and you've got like 300,000 tokens of loaded context. You know, each call is like burning so much quota. But like,
This
you're just
has
so
to be
close.
the perfect prompt.
You know, like I'm so close to like getting it and you don't want to do a reset because you lose it. Yeah. So important.
If anyone's listening, put the answer in the show notes of the perfect golden ratio.
I'd like to know.
Okay, rapid fire. In your youth, you were able to guess network passwords. Talking about that very brief, fun hacker period of yours. Yeah. What security mistake are people still making? Help us prevent like a catastrophic personal.
You use a password manager, right?
I actually don't.
Oh my God.
Actually don't.
That's my answer. That's my answer. Please start.
But which one?
It doesn't matter. Just like find something reputable.
What if it gets hacked?
Just find something reputable. I'm not going to make any specific recommendations on here. You know, like you can ask me afterwards what I use. It is so important that you have unique per service passwords, or you turn on the passkeys feature that is like coming online now and you store those. Like so important. You don't want to be using similar passwords around different places. Like people will get into your things and they will be traded. I think if I go on like haveibeenpwned.com and put in my email address, I probably have the record for the most times my like passwords have been breached on there. Like
really?
This is not.
So you're not coming as like preaching to other people. Like it happens to all of us.
In 2014, my eBay password was like, you know, like, and then I just started using a password manager after that. Like, yeah, that's
Blair, I signed up on a platform last week and they said that it's something about when I tried to sign up, they said, we've checked you in this database and you've been hacked.
Yeah.
As I was trying to sign it, like create an account. I was like, say what now?
Yeah. Don't get scared. Just use a password manager, change your passwords. All
right. That's a very helpful hack. Yep. Thank you for that. What's the first thing someone should be doing to implement AI to make their work easier or personal life easier, or just something that you're like, low hanging fruit, guys, be using AI for this?
Get access to it, you know, like, especially like at work, right? You know, like find out what tools you can get access to and get access to them, you know, don't just accept what you thought was the limit, right? Find out from your colleagues. I think at home, ChatGPT is my best friend at home.
Yeah.
You know, just
bestie.
Like finding out whatever I need. Like usually I use it for a lot of shopping, actually, like product research.
Yeah. You've got, I bet similar to me, certain things that need to be ordered to your home grocery wise, or else the whole house is in anarchy. Like they have to be there. I've got 2 children that like one has a dairy intolerance, one like no matter how much I feed him, my Italian ancestors would be like, he's too skinny. And like there's just certain things that if they're not in the house falls apart.
Have you ever taken a photo of the inside of your fridge and just sent it to ChatGPT and said, like, just work out a meal plan for me with minimal extra ingredients?
I have done a similar version of that I don't have this apparently critical ingredient. Here's everything in my house. Tell me how I can hack it. And it works really well.
Yeah, until you end up with like peas instead of avocado for your guac.
Yeah, it's still green.
It was fine.
What's one thing to be safer in the way we use AI?
Think about the outputs critically. I don't think you should be like shipping stuff that you haven't deeply understood. If that's like a LinkedIn post or code or a product or a strategy document, whatever.
Don't press post. Don't go live.
Just read it. You know, like have some sensibility.
You can even use AI to help you with that, right?
You can, yeah. I mentor a few people, like some of our more like junior colleagues, every now and then. And, you know, one of the things I've asked people now to start doing is like, don't just go off and like have a sesh with ChatGPT and like, you know, do this, but like really deeply think about it for a couple of weeks. And then like, let's catch up again after that. Like really put the thought in. I think it's just so important. You know, you need to
I really like that.
Critical thought, like thinking skills high.
Because the number of times, no matter how smart these models are, no matter how much of a game change they are for me, Blair, I have a number of times been like, I disagree, dude. And then the model will be like, great point. Yeah, no, that was bad advice. And I'm like, what if I didn't say something?
It can also make you look really silly if you're not careful too. Like I've definitely seen scenarios where I have a point of view on something and somebody disagrees with me on the basis of what ChatGPT told them, and they're just wrong. Like, and I'm not saying that happened at work, you know.
Could happen anywhere.
They're amazing and everyone's perfect.
That would never happen in any workplace.
But like, I think you can, you know, the overconfidence of the model, if you just accept that, you know, that can impact your own, you know, brand and reputation if you're not careful.
And it's fine if you're wrong, if it's your conviction and your work life experience and you genuinely feel that way. But don't go like arguing with someone on something you don't even necessarily understand or,
You have to be careful. Yeah.
Great point. Last question. Biggest misconception the broader community has around AI today, do you think?
Probably that it's too late to start working it out for yourself. You know, I have spoken to loads of people in different roles about AI, and they like look at people in these core platform teams as if we're going to be able to tell you the answer for your profession. I don't understand your users and your customers and your role and what's important. Like there's no way all of like the tech people in the center are going to go off and redesign work for all of humanity. It's just not, I don't believe that at all. And so I think there's so like, given the rate of like evolution, there's still so much capacity for everyone to be able to look at the capabilities and look at what they need to do in their work and in their home and like just start learning how to apply it. And there's still so much room for them to become the masters of like their own domain and how that's done. And yeah.
You're like, I don't want to solve all your problems anyway, guys. Like you're not trying to do that.
Don't trust me to like advise you on your marketing strategy maybe or your show notes, you know, how to make an interesting podcast. I don't know. I'd love to have an opinion on that, but
I'll tell you later. You can tell me what to do. Blair, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you for your candor, your honesty, and frankly, it's great to understand how you think in a bank that most of us are using and love already. How do people find your work? How do they follow you?
Yeah.
Any shout outs?
I mean, all my coolest stuff is on my internal website that I wrote with open code and, you know, like magic contacts and all
What's
that
the
sort of stuff.
website?
Oh, I won't share the
it's
URL.
okay.
You can't reach it from outside.
Okay.
Like, but
it's that internal.
Yeah. Super.
Ooh,
internal. Yeah.
okay. Well, don't tease us.
So like short of like actually coming, you know, getting a job at CBA and getting access to that, I think, you know, I just try and share interesting stuff as it comes across on LinkedIn as much as I can. And, you know, I'm always happy to pick up a conversation with people there. And, you know, if they want to ask me anything about, you know, my experiences or, you know, the cool project that they're working on, I'm always happy to like see something new too. So.
Thank you, Blair. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks so much for your time.
Boom, boom, boom. We did it. Thank you so much for listening to In the Blink of AI. If you want to go deeper on anything we've spoken about today, I write a weekly Substack called Attention is All I Need. Yes, it's hilarious. It's a pun. And essentially, I go into AI rants, tech news, events I'm going to, and more. It's bite-sized, and I hear it's awesome. The link is in the show notes below.